Hi everyone, I'm Anthony Bactano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard album, Murder of the Universe. Murder of the Universe is the second full-length album this year from Australian psych garage prog rock band King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, who is in the middle of a pretty ambitious commitment to release like 4 or 5 albums this year. And between the all-acoustic papier-mâché dream balloon and the throttling, seamless experience of Nonagon Infinity and the band's recent foray into microtonal tuning, I think they've been on a bit of a creative streak as well too. So of course, because of all of that, I'm excited to listen to this new album, excited to get my ears all over it. The band was releasing huge chunks of this 3-part album prior to the official release in stores. I tried to spoil as little of the album as possible for myself. And yes, like I said, this album is separated into 3 distinct phases, separated by track list and by title, and it rounds out at about 47 minutes. But the tracks on the album still come together as a pretty holistic experience, much in the same way that they did on Nonagon Infinity, which instrumentally is pretty similar, feels a little bit like a sister album in a way. I mean, the title Nonagon Infinity is even referenced in the song Lord of Lightning. Just like on Nonagon Infinity, with this LP we're talking about fast performances, driving grooves, linear song structures that are just propelling to their next musical destination. Of course, a lot of these grooves are topped with sharp, burning, soaring guitar leads that are really angular, really catchy. Also, if there's something that makes this album special instrumentally, is that there are a lot of kind of dark, weird, very sinister keyboard embellishments and passages too, which adds to an overall darker tone to this album as well. Darker than anything I think the band has put out so far, and this is a mood that's enhanced by these spoken word passages. They're very morbid, very apocalyptic, and they're littered throughout most of the record. And I say littered to illustrate just how many of them there are on this album. It's not like you get a few here and there, and it's not even like you just get one per track. Sometimes there are multiple spoken word bits within a single song. Honestly, the album can't really go more than 2 minutes at a time without at least a little spoken word, either by way of the nearly monotone young woman who has a very cold, chilly delivery in the first 2 parts of the record, or in the third where we kind of have this male voice that sounds sort of warped, a little robotic. He's essentially playing the part of a cyborg in the last leg of the record. And honestly, in theory, I don't mind spoken word passages. In fact, I love spoken word passages. Some of my favorite albums have them. Some of my favorite albums have very long ones. Some of my favorite albums have a lot of them. But God, this is too much, which is unfortunate because I like the 3 separate narratives of the record. I mean, the first part of it being much about transformation, a demonic transformation, with a lot of themes of evil and power and control being addressed. In the second part, it seems to set the stage for like an epic battle, I think, between this creature called the BALROG and the Lord of Lightning. And the last bit of the record seems to take almost like a bit of a sci-fi turn, with a very dystopian outlook toward the future, featuring this cyborg character who wants nothing more than to experience death. And he also yearns for the ability to vomit. In fact, that's mostly what he's yearning for his section of the record. But the placement and mixing of these spoken word passages is really disruptive. How often they pop up, where they pop up, how they're mixed. There are only a few moments on the album, Altered Beast 2 being an example, where the spoken word passages actually feel like they're mixed, they're blended properly into the instrumentation. They actually feel like they exist in the same space as the music. Most of the time, they're just tacked on top of the music as if I'm listening to some kind of poetic director commentary over the album itself. It's really to the point where it sounds like someone just won't shut up while the music's playing. And the thing is, these passages, they don't always turn up in spaces where the music sort of opens up and provides them a platform. Like on the song Altered Beast 3, all of a sudden, during one of the band's slowest, heaviest, and most gratifying crescendos on the entire record, of course, we get a poetic spoken word passage, which just sucks the momentum and the energy and the excitement out of what should be an amazing moment on this record. There are moments where these passages are placed that seem to make more sense than others, either where we have a bit of a downtime instrumentally, or toward the beginning, or toward the finish of a track, or maybe over one of the many 1-minute segues in the track listing of this thing. But even when these passages are placed well, Because they're used so awfully on most of the album, whenever I hear one, I just want to escape. I just want to get away. And this is pretty much the case for each leg of the album to varying degrees. It's terrible at the first leg. It gets the worst at the last leg. The second leg for me is really where some of the compositions shine through the spoken word passages, or we're just not getting that many. BALROG, Lord of Lightning, love those tracks. And in the last leg, you know, Digital Black, excellent song too. And don't get me wrong, it's not that I think the album is unlistenable. I think what King Gizzard attempted here is really ambitious, really creative, pretty unique. On paper, it looks amazing, but in execution, it leaves a lot to be desired. Not only because of what I said, but sometimes I feel like the spoken word passages, while I do love that they bring depth and context to King Gizzard's usually straightforward and very blunt lyrics, sometimes I think they're just over-contextualizing everything. By the point of Vomit Coffin, I feel like the spoken word passages aren't really establishing anything that hasn't already been established up until this point. At least not anything I really care about hearing, other than the music you're talking over. I will admit the finale, which is a detailed description of our cyborg protagonist's death via puking, is hilariously grim. But by that point, I'm just sick of these spoken word passages. I really am. For me, this album just could have been so much better. Is it rushed? Is it unrealized potential? Is it just doing too much? Maybe a little Vol 3. For me, despite that I think that King Gizzard are recording and penning some of their most fantastic instrumental bits in their entire career, the album, again, has been released with such a glaring and obvious flaw to it, an annoying flaw to it, that I'm just surprised got completely overlooked and left on the record. It's just kind of like the definition of overkill. I'm feeling the lightest of 6s on this album. Transition. Have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? So on and so forth. You know the little deal. Next to my head, over here, make sure you check out my last King Gizzard review. It's right over here, next to my head. Previous King Gizzard review. That album, liked it a little bit more. And I will catch you guys in the next video. Make sure to subscribe to the channel too. Stay hydrated, fruits and vegetables, and get some sleep forever.